Hey everyone, and welcome to the Innovation Room podcast. My name is Tori Homann, and I'll be joined today by my co-host, Daniel Guajardo. This week, we're talking all about mentoring. What is it? Why is it important? What does a mentoring relationship look like in the workplace? And how does it play into how we work with our external vendors? We are going to spend some time today talking about internal mentorship of coworkers and teammates, but what we really want to focus on is how we recognize, support, and equip our external vendors, right? Those people who are pretty critical to helping our businesses thrive. And that relationship between vendor relations and organizational health definitely isn't talked about quite as much in a lot of business and industry circles, but it's certainly just as important. And since we're probably heading into what is kind of an uncertain economic time here in 2023, giving your company any and every competitive advantage is obviously a great idea. So before I introduce today's guest to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show, or visit NorthAmericanScience.com for more industry resources. You can also find the audio version of today's podcast or any of our previous episodes wherever you get your podcasts. So today's guest, who I'm excited for you to meet in just a minute, is Kirk Beaudoin, and he is a professional in the facilities management space. He's a longtime, highly involved ConnexFM member. And if you're not familiar with ConnexFM, it is the leading multi-site facilities management association. So Kirk's a member there. And he's also an expert on mentorship and vendor relations. So we're really excited to have him on the show today to talk about how mentorship and vendor relations can play into organizational health.
So, Kirk, could you maybe tell us how long you've been in the facilities industry and a little bit about where you got your start?
Yeah, I've spent my entire career in the facilities industry in one way or another. Um, my uncle owns a moving company, and when I was in high school, he asked me if I wanted to make some extra money working over the summers, and that led to more weekend work to then full-time work, and eventually I was going out with the crews, and it wasn't really residential. We weren't moving people's houses. We were going to corporate campuses, and it was during the high-tech boom of the 80s and 90s. So a lot of computer companies, and we would go out and move office furniture around or build the cubicle panel systems. And I just got lucky because one of the companies we went to on a regular basis, they just decided, hey, why don't we hire some of these guys? Why are we basically renting them every day? And so all of a sudden I was on a facilities team, and I took every opportunity, every chance that they presented with expanding your role or doing something new, and that led to new and different things. And over the years and promotions, I found myself after time going from being a mover to I was maintaining the entire campus. And after some buyouts and outsourcing and then layoffs, I found myself looking for work, and that's when I moved from the corporate side over to the retail side. And I've worked for a few retail companies now, and that's where we're at today. And I'm loving retail facilities.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear. And so I guess we're going to jump a little bit into your involvement in your third party or outside organizations. You've been highly engaged, it seems, throughout your whole career here, moving up and being interested in your next steps. You're also highly engaged in Connex, which is an organization that we're both a part of, and that's kind of how we met. Could you tell me a little bit about your involvement with the Connex organization?
Yeah, absolutely. It started as Prism, professional retail store maintenance, and my introduction into that was when I moved from the corporate side over to the retail side, and that would have been 2004. And I read my first Prism magazine, and that was really my introduction into the association. And I found it fascinating. I was more familiar with IFMA on the corporate side, and so I wanted to learn more about Prism. And with the rest of the team, the retail team, we were going to the shows, and I think my first involvement was studying for the RFMP and taking that certification test and earning that one. After I earned it, I wanted to get a little bit more involved with the association, and I think I wrote an article that was in one of the magazines, and that was kind of cool. Didn't know how that worked, but I found out that they take submissions. So I wrote an article. I then served on the nominating committee, and each year, just tried something new. So, I was on the best practices committee and the alliance committee. Then I was on the certification committee. I've served on the board of directors, 2 separate terms, one from, I think, 13 through 16, and then 18 through 22, which I just dropped off at the last national. And then as soon as I dropped off the board, I was back to the tactical side, and I've been pretty busy this past year, serving on the DE&I committee and the Legacy Council. I was asked to co-chair the new Retail Council. I served on the board of directors governance committee as a task force member to do some videos. I also served on the WIA committee's professional development task force, which as part of that, I did the Empower Hour on my Be Great mentoring topic. And then I also participated in the pilot program for the one-on-one mentoring for the association as well. So looks like as soon as I dropped off the board, I jumped in with all my feet.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
maybe
I mean,
off.
Kirk, are you sleeping? Are you sleeping at all?
Not a lot. I had a full head of hair. But
Like a
yeah, I love
presidential.
the involvement. I love to be engaged, and I love being able to help other people.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
that's
and
awesome.
that is perfect as well, because that is what we're going to be talking about most today. Obviously, you've been a big part of helping people since, I don't know, maybe even before 2004, but at least since 2004, and that's almost a 20-year stint of volunteer, and that's really great. So first, thank you for all of that, because Connex has been a huge part of my career. I actually was at Prism when the last 2 years, I think it was Prism before Connex is when I started. So way after, but I don't even know what year. But I thought it was funny about you mentioned the article, because that was the first thing I did. I was like, you can submit articles. So I just wrote an article and was like, hopefully they take it.
Yes, it's very cool.
Yeah. So we do want to talk a little bit about, all the involvement that we have in the helping, and really internal, external, just recognition for everything that we do, everything that everybody does for us as well, within our organizations.
So Kirk, you just mentioned that you were a couple of months ago on the Women in Action Committee's Empower Hour, and you were talking about I don't know if we can call it a program or a system, but you call it Be Great, and it's all about mentoring. So can you just tell us a little bit about that program and kind of what interests you in mentoring and what got you started there?
Yeah, so from the program aspect, I was asked if I could help on a mentoring program at work, and it was pretty cool. It was a cool concept because it was a mentoring circle. It was a group as opposed to a one-on-one mentoring concept, and I'd never done anything like that before. And I was like, I don't even know what content to create if it's not one-on-one questions. And if you go far enough back in my career, one of the cool things about being in the sports industry is, we need a lot of players and coaches and whatnot. You get a lot of inspirational messages, and we had one of the coaches came and spoke to us, and I'll just share share it with you here. He would share with his basketball team, and he would get everyone together, and he would ask everyone, okay, everyone raise your hands as high as you can. And everyone would raise their hands, and he'd go a little higher, and they would raise them a little higher. And he goes, okay, what did I ask you to do? Raise your hands as high as you could. And then what? Raise them a little higher. Now, if you raise them as high as you could the first time, you wouldn't be able to raise them any higher. But every time you go through this exercise, everyone's able to stretch a little bit more, stand on their tiptoes, whatever they do, but their hands go up a little bit higher. And he was pointing out that little difference, it's this much. That little difference is the difference between winning and losing, between first and second, between gold and silver. And the piece that I loved was, he said that difference in your effort is the difference between being good and being great. And I just latched onto that years ago. And I just kind of made that my own little internal mantra. And I decided to build the mentoring topic around that kind of that launching point. And, everything from there, all the different chapters that we created, around, what do I want to say? It starts with the be great intro, then it's know your why, the importance of singing your praises, the importance of recognition, which I think we'll talk about today, self-awareness, never stop learning, building your own personal brand, and then being aware of what is your legacy. So that was the program that I built, and I've shared it with numerous people now over the years. And I'm no expert on the topic, but if I feel like all the feedback I've gotten over the years is it's been a very successful message to share with people. And I think that answers that piece. You'd had kind of a part two to the question, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. Just what's interesting to you about mentoring, or why do you think it's important?
I had this kind of internal conversation with myself many years ago. I was always the young person in the room, right? And I remember my first few jobs sitting at the conference table, and anytime questions came up, there were those older people in the room, and they had all the answers and they knew everything, and I was just in awe of all these people. And over the years, I just sat there, and occasionally I would be able to chime in with my own thoughts, and I don't know when it happened, but all of a sudden I'm in the room and a question would come up and everyone would look to me, and I'm like, why are you guys looking at me? And then it's like, wait a minute, when did I become the old person in the room? and when I had that realization, it's like I realized I hit that level, that peak. And so I'm on the downside hill of my career, right? I can see the finish line more than I can see the starting line. And I was just thinking to myself, it's like, why did it take me this long to learn everything that I've learned and know now? And I wish there was a way that I could have just had this information on the front end, right? And how much farther could I have been had I had all this information, not just knowledge and, learning about things that you have to learn through time, but just all the tips and tricks of the trade. And so I was like, how, if I could just take that information that I've spent a lifetime learning and give that to the younger generations and the young facilities managers and just people, does that give them a step up? And, they can then maybe far exceed, where I can get to, because they've got that head start. And it just excites me to think that I can provide something, to these other people. And I've had some amazing managers and coworkers and mentors over my career, and they've always been very giving in sharing information. We all know there's some people out there that they hold things close to their chest and they won't share their own tips and tricks because maybe they think that it makes them less valuable if other people know it. And I've been fortunate that everyone I've worked with has just been like, look, here's all my secrets, use them if you can. And I've tried to continue that kind of a pay it forward mentality of just trying to do the right thing.
That's so amazing. And thank you for all the work that you do in that realm. And so as far as mentoring goes, if you kind of, Kirk, had to distill mentoring down and define it in like a couple of sentences, what would you say that mentoring is?
Yeah.
Yikes.
And for those that know me, I can't concise anything down into a couple sentences. So, but yeah, I mean, it really depends on the mentee, right? So, but at the heart of mentoring, I think it's coaching and teaching, right? It's sharing those experiences, and then it's supporting and encouraging, but each mentee has different goals. They have different starting points. They have, different endpoints. So I don't think there's any sort of magic silver bullet, so to speak, for each mentor mentee engagement. I've had some mentees that I didn't even know were mentees, that they just over years they would mention to me just in passing, wow, I've always considered you a really great mentor, and I've appreciated everything I've learned from you. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know I was your mentor. So it's, you can teach people just through your actions, just through how you work with people and support people. And then on the other end, I've had people who have specifically come up to me and asked me, I need a mentor. Would you be willing to be my mentor? And we've talked about what is it that they want to get out of it. And some of those examples have been very short term, like I just need a little bit of help here. And other have been, hey, I'll take anything and everything you can give me. And if we stay connected the rest of my life, great. So it really depends on what the mentee wants to get out of it. And like I said, first, everyone around you is a mentee. I'm a mentee, right? Never stop learning. So
Yep.
You don't necessarily have to have the label mentor mentee on it. Just as long as you're networking and sharing with people, everyone's learning.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So in maybe a mentor mentee relationship that's like a bit more structured or intentional, what would that relationship look like? Both like practically, like we're meeting once a week, or maybe a bit more hypothetically even, or conceptually.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to the mentee, right? I've had a couple where it was we had structured meetings where it was, this time every month, let's meet, let's talk. I've had information that I wanted to share. We've had open dialogue where you can bring, a question or a topic to me and we discuss. And then I've also had them where they've been very casual, that there was no plan, there was no schedule, and it was just kind of as needed. So again, I think it goes back, not to kind of scapegoat out of answering the question, but it really depends on what that relationship is and what the mentee needs, because it's not going to do a mentee any good if they have a need and I say, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to follow these steps and we're going to meet at these exact times. That may not be what that person needs. So, some people might just need someone to bounce something off of as it comes up, with no pre-schedule. Other people maybe just want to learn things and they don't have an end goal. They just want to get better. And they're fine with sitting through a regularly scheduled cadence and just have, pre-canned topics to discuss and take the Q&A from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you feel like there's kind of an interest amongst young professionals? I mean, there definitely is an interest, but is there a lot of interest, or only from like a specific kind of subset of young professionals, or just kind of, what are the rough percentages, would you say?
Yeah, honestly, I have no idea. I know that judging from the WIA and the YP Young Professionals, committee, there's it seems like there's interest and involvement from members and the professionals out there, that they, never stop learning. They want to learn things. But I can't answer it from a mentor standpoint, like, hey, how many people have come up and asked me, hey, will you be a mentor? And really that's my biggest hurdle right now is, I participated in the pilot program, and that was a one-on-one experience, which was great. And I believe my mentee got a lot out of it. We've had nice back and forth conversations, and he's brought up a lot of things as well, which in my mind, never stop learning. As I'm pitching my thoughts and my ideas and my answers, I'm also absorbing the questions and the perspectives and even the different perspectives to my answers. So I'm continually growing, but I would never be able to just have all these one-on-one mentor-mentee relationships. And so it's like, how do you get your help out there? I don't want to say it to the masses, but it's like, if I just took one mentor mentee relationship a year, 10 years from now, I've only helped 10 people. How is that moving the needle? Right. So I like the mentoring circle idea, because now you're doing it in a group format. I really liked the opportunity to speak at the Empower Hour, because now that's a recorded video out there that, there may have only been 10 or 20 or 30 people actually on the live version, but to know that anyone, any of the members can just go log in and download it and watch it or share it with their team. Now you're reaching hopefully, hundreds or thousands or millions, obviously not millions, but it's more than the one-on-one experience, right? So I like that, and I like being able to share it in that format. Or this right here, how many people are going to be able to see this and maybe get inspired or choose to go watch a webinar.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And Kirk, I think you put your finger kind of on the pulse of something that I'm also really interested in mentorship, and I have several mentors, and but that mentorship is really a two-way street. And so if you as the mentor go in just assuming that you're going to absorb all this information and just sit there and receive all the time, like, well, that ain't it, right? But then as the mentor, if you go in assuming that your only job is to impart all of your knowledge upon the other person, and you don't have that growth mindset, that's not someone that I would necessarily want to be mentored by, right? If you just assume that you have nothing yet to learn, right? And so I think you're really right, though, understanding that it definitely goes both ways, maybe some more than the other, but it does go both ways.
Definitely. I found through the association and networking with so many of my peers, we've all got very similar jobs, right? In retail facilities, and on the vendor side, the vendors are there to support and do whatever their specific trade is. We all have very similar roles at the heart of it. And I've discovered, after working at several different retailers, all doing the same thing, everyone does it different. And if everyone's doing it different in this small sampling, I can only imagine how many different variations of doing things there are if you look at the entire association. So I love networking with my peers out there, and I don't think we get the opportunity to do it enough, right? Connex, and back in the day, Prism does a great job, right? The national, the mid-year, the little Prism live events that we used to have, the connections that were rolling through the cities. It's a great opportunity for you to get together and network with, your fellow facilities managers, or, I'm not sure how much that works on the vendor side, how many vendors actually want to meet with other vendors and share and network. But I know that on the facilities side, we can learn a lot from our other facilities managers.
Yeah.
So how does that work with competing facilities managers, though? Because that's the kind of the part with the vendors. We do like to get together and network, but then there's that certain amount of information that's just kind of tucked away, and that sometimes is probably good information. Unfortunately, there's that level of respect where we don't want to run into competition and give away secrets.
Right. And I think that's where you guys on the vendor side or the supplier side differs a little bit from the facility side. I've even heard, don't know if I want to air that here, but I've heard that there's vendors who have clients that aren't members of Prism or Connex, and they won't tell them about Prism or Connex because they don't want to bring their customers to an association where they're now exposed to their competition. So it's disheartening, because I want every retail company or every multi-site company out there to be a member, so that we're one big, family. We may be competitors in the big family, but it would be great if we had every company out there as a member. As far as networking, I don't think it's going to affect anything if one of my fellow FMs knows what plumber I use or what electrician I use. I don't think there's any groundbreaking privacy there. But obviously there's probably going to be some facilities managers at certain companies that aren't going to talk to some facilities managers at other companies, and that's fine. But there's thousands and thousands of us out there, and you're gonna be bound to find a number of them who should be willing to network and discuss things with you.
Yeah, and you should want to bring your people there. The reason CVS is across the street from every Walgreens is because it builds a healthy competition. Like, you want your competitors to see how well you're doing.
Sure.
But no, that makes a lot of sense. So we're going to move into recognition, really, and just talking about the importance of recognition and what it really means. So let's just jump right in and start talking about recognition of vendors, because that's where you have the most experience. Kirk, you want to give us a little bit of your insight there?
Yeah, I mean, for us as facilities managers, we're not actually out there doing the work, right? So our success is tied to the success of our vendor partners. And we've got crazy requests, crazy schedules. Hey, I need you out there right away for this emergency, or hey, sorry, you have to come in after hours because you can't be there when the store's open or whatnot. So we've got a lot of expectations and requirements. And over the course of my career, I have worked with hundreds and hundreds. I don't want to say thousands, but it seems like it. Hundreds and hundreds of different vendors over the years. Locals, regionals, nationals, and they span just like everyone else. There's the awesome ones, and there's the ones that need a little more hand holding, and there's the ones that you've cut loose. And I've found that it's important to be a good partner, right? Setting clear expectations, make sure there's no surprises, right? They only know what you tell them. And just as I mentioned earlier, just like every facilities manager is doing the same thing, but we all do it a little differently. Every vendor has to support each one of those different processes for each one of those different clients, right? They don't get the benefit of saying, here's the way we do it, and we do it the same way for everyone, right? Some might require a call in, some might require communication via email or notes, or don't speak with a manager, do speak with a manager, check in, don't check in. There's so many different things. And as I mentioned earlier in my career, going from I started as a vendor, right? And then I went to an employee, then I was outsourced, I went back to a vendor. I've been on both sides of that fence, and I think that gives me a great insight into how it feels to be on both sides. And so it's not lost on me, the importance and the value of those vendor partners. Just because they're not employees doesn't mean they don't deserve the same amount of respect and appreciation. And so for me, over the years, I've tried to be a good partner. I don't treat people like, hey, you're the hired help, right? You're the vendor, do what I say, I'm the customer, I'm always right. I look at it like I partner with the vendors, right? You guys, right? You're the experts in the sign field. I'm not going to tell you how to build signs or install signs. I'm going to go to you as the expert and say, hey, I need a sign, help me. Same with my HVAC vendors, my electricians, my plumbers, my janitorial team. I'm not the expert in those fields, otherwise I'd be working in those fields, right? So I have a different attitude as a customer than I think some facilities managers do. I have my expectations, right? I need you to be on site within a certain amount of time. I need you to bill me a certain way. I need you to treat the store a certain way. So as long as those requirements are met, and the expectations are clear, and my vendor partners are meeting them, I believe you need to recognize and reward exceptional performance, right? And so over my career, you've got the great partners, the great vendors, and those are the ones that you use, and the ones that aren't great kind of fall by the wayside, and the ones that go above and beyond, those become kind of like your superstar vendors, or your top tier vendors. Not that they're better or worse, it's not the ones that you cut loose are bad. I pointed out to many people over the years that just because we're not doing business or we had to go our separate ways doesn't make you a bad vendor. It just makes us a bad fit, right? My expectations might not be in line with what your programs can support. And I've been fortunate to, over the years, have partnered with the great ones, and over the years, those are the ones that we've continued to use. And one of the things that we started doing was having biennial, so every other year, awards programs for our top performing vendors. And I shared a little bit about it in the We Empower Hour. In that presentation, had some pictures, and basically we take we make a trophy, right? It's a shoe glued to a platform, and we present it to our top performing vendors. And every other year, it ranges. Some years we've had numerous, I won't say vendor of the year awards, but recipients of the shoe. And then other years there's been one or two. And then we also started recognizing individuals. So maybe where you wanted to call out a specific person at one of the companies for their above and beyond support or performance, whereas the company isn't getting the shoe award, but an individual is being called out with being named an all-star or an MVP, right?
Yeah.
And I think everyone appreciates being recognized. Everyone wants to be thanked for what they do. And what I found surprising is when we started doing these, I was hearing from a lot of the vendors, they were like, wow, this is amazing. And I realized not a lot of my peers are doing it for whatever reason, whether their companies won't allow it, or they just, maybe they don't have, that mindset, or, whatever it is. But for us to be able to, over the years, recognize our top performing vendors, I think it has dual benefits. One, the vendors appreciate, the recognition. They appreciate being appreciated, right? It's like they're going above and beyond, and they probably do it for all their clients, but nobody does anything. Nobody goes out of their way to say thank you. It's just more of a, well, that's what we pay you to do, right? So by recognizing them and giving them that kind of that extra kudos or shout out, I feel like not that they can take it up another notch, but it feels like they're dialing it up another notch. And the other vendors who are on your roster and on your team, they want to dial their efforts up to try and earn one of those excuse me, one of those awards and that recognition. And it is a little bit of a competition, right? You've got dozens of vendors out there, and a lot of them are doing similar services, right? So they're in competition with their competition. And and that's not the purpose of it, but I think that's the dual side of it, that when people are appreciated, they're going to maybe give you that little extra effort, that little raise your hands a little bit higher. And no different than you've heard plenty of sayings like, people don't quit companies, they quit managers. And it really is about feeling appreciated. If you're doing a great job and you don't feel appreciated, people tend to leave and go somewhere where they are. So I find it important to make sure that our key partners are recognized and know that they're appreciated. If I go far enough back, I know that we've even sent out, over the years, where possible, thank yous. We've sent out, friends and family type discount cards, to share with the techs in the field, in appreciation for their jumping through the hoops. And, I haven't confirmed this, but I'm going to guess, when we came out of the pandemic, and everyone all at the same time was opening back up, and everyone was saying, I need someone out here right now to do this so that we can open. And there was all the vendors who were suffering through the pandemic and, downsizing, and, some people retired and just didn't come back, right? There's less vendors to do the same amount of work. And now there's this big spike of work, and I have a feeling that if I have some of my key vendors out there that they ended up with 50 calls and they can only respond to 25 of them first, I'm probably in that first batch because of the partnership and the appreciation we show. And so that's just kind of one of those added benefits of being a good partner and showing people that you appreciate them.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess for your colleagues, as you were saying, as you realize not too many people do this, there are some benefits. The quality of work, like you said, moves up a little bit. they call you back first. They answer your calls over other people's probably. And from the vendor side point, I can tell you, you're right. Yeah. Like when I would do that exact same thing, the people that, you built a friendship at that point, saying thank you is something that's more than just a working relationship or going out of your way to send a card or anything like that. It's a deeper connection. Like we're not best friends calling each other on the phone, but it's a deeper connection. And I feel that you appreciate what I do for you and vice versa. So yeah, if there's 10 other people below, or you could have come in at 11, you just move up. So I would urge people to think about these things, building these human relationships within their industries and with their vendors. Um, I guess I'd like to go in a little bit more about the effective ways to maybe achieve this, because an award and an annual thing is awesome, but what are maybe some of the smaller monthly, weekly, daily ways that we can achieve showing recognition to our vendors? Do you have any insight there?
Yeah, and I don't know if I would call it, showing recognition. This just could be a standard, business process, right? Where,
Mhm.
we try and meet, I won't say meet, but have calls or meetings on a regular basis with our vendors, right? Whether it's every other week for some of the busier vendor relationships, once a month, once a quarter. It's important to stay plugged in, right? To build that rapport. And you had mentioned, before, and I wanted to jump in and say the face-to-face piece, I think, is really important too when you're building, hey, we may not be best of friends, right? But it's like there's working with someone, then there's knowing someone, and then of course, there's the personal friendships and whatnot. But I found if I'm working with someone, I've never met them in person and I've just had calls with them, it's completely different when you finally meet them. Like you go to the national show and you see them at their booth and hey, how are you? Hey, I've been working with you for X amount of years and this is the first time I got to meet you, and you shake their hand and you have that just that personal connection for just a moment. It changes things. And I don't know if it's just for me, but it feels like it's different, and you can have 100 phone calls before that, but it's just once you've actually met that person and stood face to face, it's different.
Oh yeah, I agree. And it's kind of a fun game because you're always guessing, what do they look like? Like I've talked to them for a year now, and are they
Yeah.
tall? Are they short? Do they have a beard? I don't know. Like
Yeah.
by the names too. So some people still have some older names. There was what was her? I don't know. It was a name that hasn't been around for 50, 60 years. And so working with her, it was through email. I thought she was elderly-ish, 50, 60 years old. She was 24 when I met her. I was like,
Okay.
what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's fun.
So yeah, the face to face, it's important, but yeah, as far as the connections, right? Having those regular meetings, but for me or for, the teams I've worked on, when you have those meetings, right, you're reviewing whatever it is that you're reviewing, whether it's performance or, just updates on progress. The important piece is at the foundation of it is expectations, right? Everyone needs to know what's expected. And as long as those expectations are clear and they're reviewed on a regular basis, the successful vendors, they excel, they exceed those. And so those regularly scheduled meetings, when you're reviewing whatever it is, in my experience, they're always positive meetings, right? It's like, okay, great. Hey, great job on this. Thanks for the progress on that. You're having those, I don't want to call it recognition, right? But you're having a positive exchange at that time. So they are being appreciated. They are being thanked. You wrap up the call. Hey, thanks all. Appreciate everything you do for us. We might even give the occasional shout out to someone. Hey, thanks for pulling that emergency off, and getting out there right away. It's nothing official. You're not presenting them with anything, but it's like, at the bare minimum, you're showing sincere appreciation and saying thank you. And it's not just to hey, here's the one account rep who's not doing any of the stuff, and this is the one person you're talking to. You need to be able to get a message to the whole team, and those are important points. And if you can do that, there's the people, behind the scenes, the accounts payable and finance, and the people that, are sending out the invoices or uploading them into the tool, right? You want to make sure that they get their kudos as well.
Definitely. That was my next question, really, is the public recognition, but I think you kind of answered it there. I was wondering, like, is it okay to, if you're on a vendor call with 6 vendors, but somebody just pulled off an emergency for you? Is it okay to take a second, publicly recognize, like, we really appreciate that. You pulled us out of the fire here. The other people hear it. It wasn't anything to do with them, but I think probably it's positively impacts everybody on that call.
Yeah, any chance we have to use examples, and I emphasize that as well, is always have examples, right? So at the end of the year, when we have our annual vendor review, we try to have very specific examples if we're going to call something out for the year, right? And obviously it's nothing like we wait till the end of the year to address it. Everything is addressed in the moment. If there's a problem, we're addressing it in the moment. But at the end of the year, when everyone's on the call, you want to make sure you point out, hey, great job this year. Maybe there was I won't even call them misses, but here's a couple of the hiccups we had. Was it, the notes were responded to in a sufficient amount of time? There were some ETAs missed, whatever that example is. If I tell you, hey, you need to get better at communication. Okay, thanks. That's helpful, right?
Yeah.
If I say, here's a work order number, look at note number 15, 16, and 17. These weren't responded to for 3 days. You can go back and look at it and go, oh, I was on vacation that week. I need to do better when I'm on vacation to put the backup person on notice, right? Or, but if you're not given the specific example, you just be like, I guess I need to talk more. How am I improving communication, right? So we try and make sure that anytime we have something, I don't want to say to complain about because it makes it sound like we're complaining, but anytime we have a call out, we want to be very clear on what it is and allow our partners to dig into it.
Yeah, they can learn something at that point. One of the things I believe is you never will fail as long as you've learned something. If you don't learn something and you failed, then you've actually failed. That's the only time you've actually failed.
Yes, I've used that slogan several times, saying I never lose. I either win or I learn.
Yeah. And as long as you can do that, life is a lot easier.
Yes.
So Kirk, you had mentioned kind of at the beginning of today's show that you're kind of you're closer to the end of your career than you are to the beginning of your career. So just kind of what are something that you would want to share with people who are kind of climbing the ladder in the facilities industry? What is something you wish you had known at 25?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that it's never too early to start thinking about what is your legacy, which is the last topic in my Be Great Circle presentation. I think I try and share everything kind of a pay it forward. I think back when I was young, and I assume you guys are the same, or probably feeling right now, is you're focused on your job right now, and maybe not so much, what's the next job or 2 jobs down, or maybe not different jobs, but just positions up the ladder. I was so focused on just, I'm going to be great at what I'm doing, and I really didn't open myself up to any of the other stuff. Here's a course. Well, that course isn't related to what I'm doing, and I wouldn't consider it. So, being open to learning and growing, I think, is very important. And I think most people nowadays have that attitude. I think times have changed, right? When I was young, and my parents and my grandparents' days, the days of working for a company for 50 years and then getting the gold Rolex at the end of the end of the career, those days are gone, right? Everyone's going from job to job to job. And so I think when you're young, having that foresight to say, hey, what might be valuable for me in the future, and not just look solely at what I'm working on in the moment. And the what is your legacy? My message there for people is, at the end of the day, what do you want to be known for, right? And I've said and shared with numerous people, my current, recent mentality was, I want to be the greatest facilities manager ever. Is that a thing? No. Is there a way to measure it? No. Will it ever be a thing? No. But everything that I do, every program that I put in place, every interaction I have with someone, I want that to be supporting documentation that would go into building that building that justification, right? Every step forward is a positive step towards that goal. When I was younger, my first job, I remember thinking, and I didn't have so much the legacy mindset, but I remember thinking, when people think back about me, I want them to think Kirk was the funniest guy I've ever worked with, right? And I had this kind of jokey sense of humor, and obviously I outgrew that. I still try to be funny. I think you should have fun at work, but it's moved into, now I want to be a great teammate. I want to be a great friend. I want to be a great, son. I want to be a great, manager. I want to be a great mentor. It's all encompassing. And so your legacy can change, and it doesn't have to be just one thing. But I look at that question of what is your legacy, and I'm always inspired by little slogans or memes, right? I'm pretty simple. But I remember hearing one that said, you're not a leader until you make a leader who makes a leader. And I kind of latched onto that. I was like, oh, I get it, right? It's no different than if you made it to the top, it's your obligation to send the elevator back down, and all those little catchy phrases about being a good leader. But I like the one where, as being a mentor, right? I'm trying to help people. I'm not trying to make people a copy of me, right? It's I'm trying to help people develop into being the best them that they can be. And hopefully over the years, those people will go on to be great leaders. And if those people can then do the same thing and inspire others and make those people leaders, that's, I think, the true mindset of paying it forward, right? And as long as there's this continuity, whether they're sharing the Be Great message and the raise your hands a little higher, or just any of the other little tips and tricks, and the importance of recognition and all those things, if those things are carried forward, I think that that's a win. And so that's at the end of the day, I look at what is my legacy, and I just hope people look back and think positive thoughts and think kindly upon my my time with everyone.
Wow. That's a great message, Kirk. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel inspired to go and be great after this podcast.
Excellent. Well, there's another one.
And I will tell people how funny you were. Forever. I'll be like, Kirk.
He was the funniest guy.
Right.
No, that is great. I know we mentioned a few times in here the Be Great WIA webinar. Just for everybody to know, we will have that link in the bottom. There might be some links that pop up as we talk about it. If you want to check that out as a Connex member, you will have availability to do so. And if you're not a Connex member, maybe consider becoming a Connex member. If this webinar alone worth it. No, but, just wanted to let everybody know that. We do want to thank Kirk for his time here today. We do appreciate everything he went over. This is really good information. Like Tori said, I learned something myself here too. And that's why I love doing these, because our guests know more than we do. So that's why we bring you on.
For sure.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
thank you,
Tori.
Kirk.
All right, well, let's wrap it up there. And please remember to like, subscribe, and share the video. Comment if you have any questions for myself, Tori, or Kirk, and we will definitely try to reach out. If Kirk's not too busy, we might try to get him to reply as well. But we will definitely reach back out. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.